Hey there, I hope you had a great weekend. So, I was talking with a colleague last week, and she was telling me about a conversation she had with her supervisor, and they were talking about some changes to her job and sort of how she could be compensated for the work that she had been doing, and talking about potentially a raise. And her supervisor said to her, "Well, everybody hits a glass ceiling at some time, right?" I mean, this colleague is like in her mid 20s, and this isn't a big corporation. This is a smaller business. And like I tell my Ellie and Liv, like I laugh because otherwise I cry. So it's really not funny. And it was really hurtful to the colleague that I have, and I was just like raging mad for a number of days for her because I think it's just absurd and ridiculous that this is where we're at. And but I know that this conversation is not in a vacuum, and that lots of other people experience a ceiling, whether it is they are actually told that there's a ceiling or they just experience it because that's their experience. They're not able to push beyond that. And so that sort of like invigorated me and reminded me why I started my business in the first place, which is I'm so passionate about helping people move through that glass ceiling and figure out ways to be strategic in their communication and in their career choices, especially young women, so that they can move beyond that, and that hitting a glass ceiling is something that they don't experience because they're able to work through it. So that's one piece of this. But then I also, in having time to reflect on it over the last few days, it also occurred to me that individuals working together and helping each other, and sort of that concept that we all rise together, I love that, and that is so helpful and powerful. But it doesn't necessarily fundamentally change the system in which we operate. And so that's only going to get us so far. But in order to really like eviscerate this glass ceiling, we have to work together. And business owners and managers and businesses as institutions and organizations need to figure out different ways for hiring people, for their promotional practices, for like continuing education and like continuing opportunities for their employees. It's a much more dynamic and complicated situation. So in moving forward, I am going to keep focusing on helping younger women figure out how to keep moving forward in their careers, because I'm so passionate about that. I didn't have that kind of help, and that's what really drives me. Is I want to be able to help people to learn from my experience and learn from all the hard things that I went through, so that they don't have to do it, and that can help them get even further towards reaching their goals than what I could. But the flip of that is also we need to help businesses, because a lot of times, the more that I thought about it, my colleague who had this conversation, he may have said that in wanting to be mean and sort of like put her in her place, but he also may have said that being like kind of clueless and saying, well, there just is a glass ceiling, right? Like there's nothing we can do about it. And so I really want to also help businesses who are and organizations who are in that situation, and recognizing that like, oh man, I'm losing my employees are really unhappy. I don't know how to hire people and get them to stay, because those are all signs that like what you're doing maybe isn't exactly helping the people that you are wanting to attract to work at your organization. And so it's also really key for those organizations to have practices in place that are going to be helpful to people. So it's these two things together, and I'm still working through exactly how that's gonna look long term, but that's okay. For sure, there will still be content helping with individuals and helping people to figure out like, how can I be strategic in my communication? How can I work through conflict? How can I do these things? Absolutely. But there's also gonna still be this piece of like how to help businesses, because I think we can't forget that. Those two things have to go hand in hand together. So if you know people who are in these boats, whether people who are young professionals who are trying to keep moving up whatever kind of ladder, and they're running into some challenges, and whether that's like an institutional challenge, the organization that they work with, or maybe it's just like themselves trying to be strategic, trying to work on their confidence, trying to like knowing that they are capable of doing something more than they are doing, but not sure exactly how to take that next step, please tag them on this, like this, share this with them, because the moving forward content is going to be speaking to that group of people. But on the other hand, if you also know people who are leaders currently, whether they're owners or they're managers or they're running businesses where people are really struggling to retain employees and want to be able to connect with their people, but they just don't quite know exactly how to do that, also like them, tag them, have them follow this content, because we are going to work towards helping that group of people as well. One of my former clients used to call me like the cool aunt. So, and by that, it was sort of like a people whisperer. Like I could go talk to employees and be able to figure out what was going on and go back and tell the leaders, like, this is what you need to do to change it. And get people to talk to me in ways that they wouldn't maybe necessarily talk to their manager. So this is a solvable problem, even though it is so infuriating and it is going to take time. Like, this is not going to change overnight. But if we start to build this collective of people who are committed to making this happen, that is going to do some really powerful things, and that starts to create ripples, and that's how like real change actually happens. And so I hope that you will hop on board this wild train with me, and we will figure it out together. All right, remember that times are still freaking weird, and so weird, and that's okay, but remember to be kind to yourself and to others, and to be true to yourself. Keep rocking, and I look forward to connecting with you here soon.